All right, COVID-19. Let's dive into the latest on this. If you look at a lot of websites, it's just one big COVID panic fest. I'm seeing today there's a story in the British press, I think it was The Guardian, that that your immunity only lasts for a few months to this, and that maybe a vaccine is only going to be effective for a season, so it'll be like the flu. I've said this is possible. We could face something like this. But we keep seeing all this panic everywhere about what we're going to do. And there is just a rejection in the media across the board of, we can't stop this thing. That's the part of this that I feel like no one will say out loud, and that it is beyond the ability of a large, complicated society of hundreds of millions of people to stop this, and especially to stop this without doing incalculable damage to itself as we move through this and as we deal with it. All right, let's look at some numbers. For the last 24 hours, according to the CDC, you had 62,900 new cases and just 906 new deaths. So deaths are up. Not up to the point they were when New York was the epicenter of this, but deaths are certainly higher than they were, very concerning. There's reason to believe, based on the trend lines that we've seen in the past, that you're probably at a, hopefully, peak in this next week or two. I saw, Dr. Scott Gottlieb, who, this guy's wrong. These people are wrong over and over. And then when you're like, wait a second, I'm not sure that I go along with your latest projection, we will hear from, Dr. Gottlieb, for example, well, I'm an expert, so you have to listen to me. He's saying there's going to be a plateau. So effectively, we'll be at a pretty high rate of cases and deaths, and it's just going to stay there for a long, long time. That hasn't happened anywhere else. So I don't know why that would happen here now, but if you see the incentives for always viewing the most negative, viewing the situation as negatively as possible, it's very clear why this is happening. You have, one, just for the media, attention. A great way to get attention. I mean, the whole Drudge Report now is COVID-19 is going to kill all of us. We're all going to die from it, and you might as well just give up now. That's basically, read the Drudge Report, that's what it says. For the libs, wear a mask has turned into, like, if we only wore masks, this would go away. There's just no evidence for that. I'm not saying that masks might not be able to reduce transmission of a certain percentage. Maybe it's 2%, maybe it's 15%, who knows. But even if everyone does that, there's still going to be a lot of this disease sweeping around in waves. It's very similar in structure and transmissibility to the common cold. We have learned to live with the common cold. I know that doesn't kill people, but if you're looking at lockdowns, imagine if we were trying to prevent, or rather we were going to go into lockdown as a society from something that is as present and transmissible as what we know of as a cold virus. This is effectively a cold virus that kills a percentage, 0.05% over all those who get it. That seems to be what we're dealing with. And I don't think there's really any disagreement over that. You're also seeing, or I shouldn't say there's no disagreement, there's no evidence to prove that that's wrong. Coronaviruses include colds, and this is like a really, really bad and possibly lethal version of that. Just like influenza can be bad, or it can be a pandemic that kills a lot of people, but it's the same basic structure of that virus. So, you have to be careful with what you're seeing and hearing. And I'll get into the politics of this in a second, what you're seeing and hearing from people about this, because now you have this mask or else chorus has gotten so loud because the president wore a mask over the weekend when he was inside Walter Reed Hospital. So people are saying, oh my gosh, look at this. And you have all of these voices that are now piling on with all the deaths that have happened from this are Trump's fault, and he hasn't done with the... No, in fact, he did what the experts told him to do. If anything, you see what Trump's responses to this has been all along. He's gone against his instincts and done what they told him to do, and now they pretend like He has not done what they wanted him to, and at the points at which he wanted them to. You know, people look at different countries all over the world. These are all inexact and often very sloppy comparisons. They'll say, "Oh, well, look at this. Other countries have managed to crush the virus." Implied in this argument is, "Oh, it's because of those freedom-loving Republicans in America that we haven't managed to figure this out." And there's some very convenient lapses in the actual approach to data that supports that point of view. Like, you're hearing a lot of this now. New York is down to almost negligible numbers of new cases and very, very, very few. I think it was even 0 deaths for a 24-hour period from COVID-19. And libs, Democrats, are pointing to this and saying, "See, that's how it's done. Yeah, New York, you showed everybody." Some of you were writing into me when New York was in the midst of the pandemic, and I was living, quite honestly, in the most crowded part of New York City, in one of the hotspot zip codes for New York City for COVID, when it was at its absolute worst. I mean, most of Manhattan, where the island where I live, was not hit as badly as some of the outer boroughs, except for the zip code that I was in. Then you're running in and say, "Buck, you seem so down. Yeah, because we had hospital ships floating by, and they were setting up field hospitals, telling us we're going to run out of ventilators, and we're looking at 100,000 dead in New York." I mean, the projections for New York City were, and sure enough, New York did have a really horrific time with this, 35,000 dead. But if you look at this now and you say, well, Florida's done a really bad job in comparison to New York, that's just ahistorical. Florida is still in the low thousands of deaths. New York is at 35,000 dead. It seems more likely, just apply logic to it, that this disease ripped through New York City and was at a period of effectively maximum spread across the city, and now is spreading in other places. But that's not the same thing as saying New York was really good at dealing with it, right? That's not. If I send out a battalion of soldiers and I lose 90% of my soldiers, and then there's another battalion that's commanded by somebody else, and they lose, in a battle, 20% of their soldiers, I'm not a better general than that person, right? I haven't done a better job than that other person. They're just losing soldiers now. I lost a whole lot of them before. That seems that this is just logic. This is just a very straightforward approach to what's happening, and that seems to be gone with the meeting of the Democrats now. Look, I sit here as somebody who just reads about this as much as I can and tries to know as much as I can about it for my own reasons, not even just professional reasons. Yeah, I mean, I think this thing is really bad news. I have all along. It's lethal. It's scary. It's done tremendous damage to our country and our society. But I also know we will get through it. And I do know that the people that are pretending to have all the answers don't know what the heck they're talking about. When New York City was in the worst, for those of you who live in Texas and Arizona and Florida and Georgia, which are all being hit very hard by COVID infections right now, when New York City was at its absolute worst, I did not see a person without a face mask on, and I'm in the most crowded part of New York, or the most, generally most heavily foot trafficked part of it. I didn't see a person without a face mask on for 2 months. And it was still spreading and spreading and spreading and spreading. Does anyone have even a workable, intelligent theory as to if masks are so effective? Oh, well, it lessened the spread. Well, if that's lessening the spread, it's not lessening it a lot. Everybody was wearing masks all the time. You really think it's that simple? Remember, the guidance has always been wear a mask and social distance. If mask wearing alone was this really remarkably effective tool, why is it that medical doctors who have actual access, because they're dealing with COVID patients all the time, they need it, but actual access to respirators and effectively devices that clean the air they're breathing and prevent particles down to the level of viruses from getting in, they wear them for a reason. People say, oh, but Buck, even if masks only bring the case level down, whatever the percentage is, it's worth it. Really? We're going to wear masks forever because it might limit transmission of this disease 5%, 10% over what it would be without it? Is that word? And then I really need to know why we're not wearing masks during flu season every year. I need to know that, too. I mean, I'm telling you, they're pushing. They say it's crazy, and they're not. They are pushing for masking for years ahead. That's what's going to happen. They have to. They love the control. They love the political separation between Democrats and Republicans on this issue. Because, Republicans tend to be more individual liberty and freedom-minded. And having a government authority say, don't wear masks, and turn around and be like, oh, no, you have to wear masks. The science says it. What? It's not like they told us don't wear masks 50 years ago or even a year ago. They said it 6 months ago. And now it's if you don't wear masks, you're basically murdering grandma again. We just return back to the same panic, the same nonsense. There's another part of this too. And this just goes to my philosophy around a lot of modern medicine. And now this is my feeling on things. I'm just talking to you as my friends. And we are all led to believe that doctors have almost like magic powers, that they can do so many. And there's amazing cancer treatments out there. There's stuff they can do that's, so far beyond normal civilian knowledge. And, there are amazing doctors. And I'm not saying that there aren't incredible things, but there are huge areas of important medical knowledge where we just don't know very much. Huge areas. And when it comes to virus transmission, look at the data and look at all the different studies. Are we catching this from large droplets, micro droplets, or surfaces? Medicine does not have, and they say it's all of them. Yeah, but is it 90%, 5%, 5%, 50-50? No idea. So we're making policy and all these decisions and yelling at each other, and people have even gotten shot over fights over masking, and we're making all these decisions. And yet they don't know. Is it spread through air conditioning systems? There are basic questions they simply cannot answer, but there's this certainty and this forcefulness with do what we say. And what they say changes all the time. And what they say changes not just based upon what's happening in the country with COVID-19. It changes based upon what the political needs are of the moment. And that's why, they have, I'm sorry, Fauci and the rest of them have just obliterated their credibility because they were telling us that there was no, not only were they in some cases justifying the protests while the COVID-19 was still out there and spreading, but in some cases, they should just have been called upon. Fauci should have given, a press conference or a statement where he's like, it doesn't matter how important you think your cause is. People are going to die if you keep doing these protests. The unwillingness of the public health community to do that has destroyed their objective credibility on this issue. Destroyed it. And that's a rational response to their politicization. It's not, oh, we don't believe in the virus. The virus is a hoax. That's not what anyone's saying. But their demands on us and on our freedom and on our liberties, that is questionable when they're willing to change the guidance that they say is about saving our lives based on what the latest left-wing virtue signaling mob fad is. I can't believe we're being evicted from our home that we didn't sell. That's what Deborah said when she learned that she was the victim of home title fraud, a crime that can cost you your home. Title fraud is not covered by insurance or identity theft services. The only folks I trust to protect you with this are at Home Title Lock. Your home's legal title's online where cyber thieves can find it and forge your signature stating you sold your home to them. In Deborah's case, she didn't know she was a victim until the eviction notice arrived. Home Title Lock puts a virtual barrier around your home's title. If tampering is detected, they instantly mobilize to stop it. So go to HomeTitleLock.com and register your address to see if you're a victim and don't know it. Use code BUCK for 30 free days of protection. That's code BUCK. Again, go to HomeTitleLock.com. Use code BUCK. I want to also give you an alternative theory that you won't hear in much of the media about why there has been this spike in COVID-19 cases. Courtesy of Dr. Scott Atlas. One of the nice things about Dr. Atlas is that he has impeccable credentials. Usually the way the libs do things, they say, well, this person, it doesn't matter what their argument is. We have a bunch of libs who, went to Harvard, and so they must be smarter, even though these schools they're all just, it's all a game now. They're credentialing institutions. People come out of them completely ignorant, and a lot of morons go to the best schools in the country for a lot of different things. It's just true. I'm telling you the truth. But Dr. Atlas shared the following. This was up on Fox News. The recent surges in U.S. coronavirus cases can be traced to two key factors: crowds of protesters and proximity to the U.S.-Mexico border. Dr. Scott Atlas told the Hoover Institution over the weekend. The Hoover Institution told Fox News over the weekend. Most of the cases in the Southwest, California, Arizona, and Texas, are occurring in counties closest to the U.S.-Mexico border. When you look at the southern counties of California, Arizona, and the bordering counties of Texas with the Mexico border, these are where most of the cases are really exploding. And when you look at the Mexico map and in Mexico, that's where their cases are. Their cases are in the northern border zone states, and it turns out the timeline here correlates much more to the Mexico timeline of increasing cases than anything else. Spikes in Texas, Florida, and Arizona don't essentially line up with reopening, but Mexico's surge and the recent protests that have gripped the U.S. When you look really closely at these so-called reopening policies, whether it's in Georgia or Florida or Texas, we didn't really see a big correlation of cases and hospitalizations from that. And he said, that's really not true. That's sort of some sloppy thinking, I think, again. We really have to look closely at why these things are happening. By the way, California didn't really reopen, yet they have cases coming up. Why is that? I mean, that's because these cases don't really correlate to that. They correlate mainly to two things: the big thousands and thousands of people with protesting, sharing megaphones, screaming. That's a setup to spread cases. And also, when you look at the analysis of the border counties, that's a tremendous amount of cases coming over the border and exchanging with families in the northern Mexico states. My friends, let me ask you this. Do you think the media will tell you the truth about the likelihood of the correlation of protests about Black Lives Matter and statue toppling and all this other stuff and the spread of this disease? No, because it undermines their emotions. Were the single most important factor for the left, right? I mean, they were angry, they wanted to protest. So your life and public health and all that was all pushed aside because of racist cops. All of a sudden, the real pandemic was racist cops. This is intellectually indefensible, and it's not true. It's reckless. It's dumb. People supporting this were being dumb. And now we're to believe that all of a sudden there's a surge in all these states in COVID-19 cases, and it has nothing to do with the thousands and thousands of people who have come together in these protests, screaming and yelling all day, right next to each other. Remember, this isn't normal I always say outdoor is very low risk. Well, not if you're standing next to somebody shouting and shouting for hours, yeah, maybe you can get coronavirus that way. Doesn't that make sense? I mean, no one's saying that being outdoors means that there's like a magic, safety shield around you from COVID-19, but it just means if you're being normal and going outside, going about your normal business, you're not going to get it. But it doesn't matter what the data shows. The media will never admit that protests had anything to do with this or that the U.S.-Mexico border has anything to do with this. Why? The narrative.
I'm at a loss for it for years, but it's despicable. It's cowardly. When we look at the coronavirus response across the country, we see states, big states, mega states that could be nations unto themselves, Florida and Texas, led by abject fools that would be responsible for killing a lot of their citizens with the idiocy of the policies. It's a terrible time in the country with regard to our leaders. We have a leadership crisis. We have a courage crisis in the country. And it's too bad. And we see the damage that it's all done.
Steve Schmidt's the dumbest person on TV, so it's not surprising that he's up there.
Notice that he's talking about very large states that have had a spike in COVID cases. Wait, he left one out. Which state did he leave out? He's going after Texas, which is a red state, although who knows how much longer given what's going on in the world, and Florida, which is a purple, the ultimate purple state, right? I mean, it's basically 50-50 Democrat-Republican. But notice that he leaves out,
That's so stupid and people are dying.
why doesn't he bring California into the mix? Huge spikes in California in COVID cases in the last couple of weeks. Why doesn't he? Oh, because he's just trying to score cheap political points. He doesn't really care about public health or anything else that's going on. Just ask that question. How can he pretend to be knowledgeable enough about this to be mouthing off on the issue on television as a Republican? How can he do that and not know that California has one of the worst spikes of COVID cases anywhere in the country? Well, because then that doesn't line up with what they're trying to tell people, which is that people are dying because Republicans, because Trump. California is blue across the blue top to bottom in terms of state representation, in terms of who controls that government. California is the ultimate blue state, really, even more so than New York. And they never even really fully reopened, and they had a huge spike in COVID cases. And they're all, oh my gosh, can you masks? They're all wearing masks all the time there. Big spike in cases. Any answers to this? No, of course not. But just the omission of California there tells you what you need to know about this person, who I do think is really one of the dumbest political analysts on television. I don't know him. It's not a personal thing. I just think he's a moron. But this is what he's saying. This is what he's telling you. Leave off California because
He's on MSNBC. He's trying to tell people about bad Republicans. Really, I ran the McCain campaign. That was a great campaign. Got annihilated.
good job, buddy. So now that we have that, but you know, if you want Woody Harrelson to play you in the crappy HBO movie, you gotta just do the Dems bidding. Gotta be a fake conservative lib pet. That's what Steve Schmidt is. Good job. All right, and then we have some other people out there who are making this, of course, very deeply political, and it should be no surprise that they're going to keep saying, "Oh, here you go, Elizabeth Warren, another." Oh, Alicia, we haven't heard from Elizabeth Warren in a while. You know, because, oh gosh, G Willikers, you know, she's just so folksy. I mean, she was a professor at Harvard, but oh, she'll just crochet you a little DNC donkey to put as a tea cozy. Oh, sure. Here she is on how terrible the Republicans are. Play 18.
This is a time of tremendous crisis for our nation. And across this country, the fight to dismantle structural racism has reached a new threshold. We have seen unemployment reach the highest level since the Great Depression, and people of color are being infected and dying from the COVID virus at disproportionate rates. The Trump administration's response to injustice and to the coronavirus outbreak has been hateful, reckless, and incompetent.
Well, how? Well, what has he done he did what they told him. He did the lockdowns, and then the states got to make their own decisions about reopening. And they were telling us that it wasn't up to Trump. When they didn't want it to be up to Trump, it wasn't up to Trump. He doesn't have the authority. Now it's Trump's fault. They said we were going to run out of ventilators. Now we got too many ventilators. They said we're going to run out of PPE. Nobody's run out of PPE. They said we're going to overwhelm hospital capacity all over the country. No one's had, we're going to have to move ventilators around the country and all this stuff. I remember all of this. All wrong. All wrong. Trump isn't using the Defense Production Act enough. Turns out, no, he did. We're giving ventilators away to other people, and now we find out that ventilators aren't even a really good modality, a good treatment option in a vast majority of cases. I mean, it's the absolute last thing you want is to put somebody on a ventilator who has COVID-19. So what, my friends, are they talking about when they blame Trump for the, it's just the politics of it again. Where has Trump failed in his response? If anything, Trump has done what they told him, what the Democrats and the health experts, who, as we know, unfortunately, medical doctors who want to practice medicine, you don't really necessarily know their politics, but medical doctors who want to be involved in the public debate, libs, almost across the board. Not a surprise, right? But we can't have a real talk about this. And look, we have so many wonderful members of Team Buck, so many fantastic folks are in Texas listening to this show. And I know when things are really bad in New York, they're like, Buck, come on, it's all going to be fine. And they're like, you should come out to Texas. Texas has got this under control. Governor Abbott is warning of locking you guys down. Play 7.
We do not slow the spread of COVID-19 with that rise of hospitalizations that you're seeing in Lubbock, with the increased death rate we're seeing in the state of Texas. The next step would have to be a lockdown. The last thing I want to do, the last thing anybody in Texas wants to do, is to see another lockdown. Hence, the best thing everybody can do is do this thing that is inconvenient of wearing a face covering, knowing that it will keep your jobs open, your economy open, and your businesses open.
I'm telling you, with the face covering thing, if we mandated that you will be arrested if you don't wear a face covering. I mean, if that actually became, and I don't think that that's an impossible future for this country. I really do worry that we're going to start to head to this will become an arrestable offense because people will just be so panicked. And it won't be a defense to say, where's the science that shows that this is even an effective, oh no, just shut up, do it, wear a mask all the time. Remember, the president wore a mask in Wall Street. If you're around immunocompromised people, if you're indoors in a place where there's pretty high spread of COVID and you're around people who are at risk, if you're around family members who are over 60 or have, okay, additional precaution there. But it's all about risk mitigation and management, not just be panicked all the time and just do things for the sake of doing them. But I think that even if we got to the point where you would have masks mandated under penalty of imprisonment, and so then you really had effectively in an entire county or state, let's say, 100% mask compliance, 2 weeks would pass. We'd still have people getting the disease, and then eventually it will start to go down, but it won't go down as fast as you would think, because if this is really effective, shouldn't new cases fall off a cliff? It'll just recede the way it's receded everywhere else. And then they'll say that, oh, well, you didn't comply enough. That's why our policy didn't work. That's the way that they'll always say that. There's never enough masking. Masking has to be right because there's never enough masking to test whether the theory works or not. That this is an effective tool. Forget about all the previous research. They're pulling research off of the web. I'm serious, pulling it down. Peer-reviewed studies about how cloth mask coverings do effectively nothing for aerosolized virus spread. It's basically a waste of time. They pull that stuff off. I've read it. I've seen it. And now it's gone. They'll pull these things down. Oh, yeah, no, we can't have that out there. That's against the narrative now. Okay. We're supposed to listen to these people for how long are we going to wear masks? Just do it for months and months and months, years and years. And yet, New York had New York and New Jersey are Democrat strongholds, highest level of per capita death of any states in the country. All Democrats, left-wing run. These places are just Democrat strongholds. Masks didn't save us here at all. At all. This virus burned through New York and then moved elsewhere. To say that masks saved us is just lunacy in New York. So why would it save? Oh, well, this is what we're being told. Just listen to people are saying you're a masked truther now. I'm sitting here saying the CDC was saying don't wear masks 5 months ago. CNN was doing stories. You can see it. It's online. Masks don't protect you. Don't worry about it. And now I'm not even saying they don't have any use or any utility. I'm just saying I got some questions. And I'm sick of being told that this is the answer. They act like none of that mattered, what they told us before. Buck, things have changed. There's new data. Show me that new data. What new data? But if you ask questions these days, you're an enemy of what they're trying to do. And so nothing else matters. Oh, another thing is obviously they're trying to keep schools shut down. Betsy DeVos, the education secretary, said this. Play clip 9.
Well, the CDC has also been very clear to say they never recommended schools close down in the first place, and they are very much of the posture that kids need to be back in school for a multitude of reasons. The American Academy of Pediatrics has said the same thing. Kids need to be in school. They need to be learning. They need to be moving ahead, and we cannot be paralyzed and not allow that or not be intent on that happening.
I always hear about, look at other places they've managed to these countries. And again, if we're talking about places in Europe like Italy and France and Belgium, and they managed to conquer it after it burned through their populations, killing a far higher per capita percentage than what we have here in the United States. So just don't ever forget that part of this. Germany and the U.S. per capita are pretty close. Denmark, Sweden, well, actually, I'm not sure where Sweden is versus the U.S., but, Denmark and Finland and Norway, but these are low population countries, low density countries, very high levels of public health and hygiene, very low levels of cardiovascular disease and diabetes. We compare all these populations as though we're all the same all over the world. It's just not true. It's just not true. And how much does having a healthier population affect even the ability of the disease to spread in the first place, because people's immune systems block it from actually establishing the initial infection? So this all ties together. These are all things that are true. We all know that public health is different in various countries, but they'll just sort of cherry pick. Look what they did in this place. Why haven't we done that? Well, I'll say, well, what about another country where they're having even more problems? And they did exactly what you said. Oh, it always move. European schools have been open for months, and there's no evidence to show that schools are a high transmission risk and that kids are at any notable risk for this disease in school. But why are we having this debate? Democrats have their marching orders. Shut down the schools. The economy can't recover. Biden will win. That's it. That's the whole thing. Everything else is noise. Everything else, it's not about kids. It's not about safety. Noise. The school issue, just like with the protests where you saw that they will gaslight you. I mean, they will lie to your face. Oh, no, the protests, that's good for public health for some reason. With the schools, oh, no, it's for protecting the kids. That's why we got to do that. It's the kids. No, it's not. It's really not. We know what it's about. Putting that Mr. Magoo senile fool, Joe Biden, in the White House so that the left has a puppet to control.
No, I think what we heard from the secretary was malfeasance and dereliction of duty. This is appalling. They're messing. The president and his administration are messing with the health of our children. We all want our children to go back to school. Teachers do, parents do, and children do. But they must go back safely. And when we hear what the administration is saying, we know that they have no appreciation for the failure that has brought us to this point. Going back to school presents the biggest risk for the spread of the coronavirus.
That's just not true. Does anyone, where's fake Tapper and the other serious journos over at CNN? Anyone ask her about this one? Oh, my God. Unbelievable. Nancy Pelosi is really a stupid person's idea of what an intelligent, savvy lib sounds like. She just says, it's good, this divorce that is undermining the, dereliction. What? What is she even saying? It's just blather. It's nonsense. Nincompoopery. Oh, my gosh. The schools. They're not going to open the schools because without the schools open, the economy is going to be on lockdown. And with the economy on lockdown, it's going to be really hard for Trump to win re-election, folks. And they know this. That's why these people are psychos, okay? They lied about Russia for years. They're lunatics. You think they're all of a sudden going to become normal now? They were saying that Trump was a Russian Adam Schiff, with the cold, dead eyes of a shark. Always this guy just staring into the camera. I just can lie about anything, and clearly I had no friends in high school or college, and now I'm just going to do the bidding of the sociopathic Democrat Party, and maybe people will like me. Play clip 17.
The president has this bizarre affinity for Vladimir Putin, other autocrats as well. Where that comes from, we don't know. In fact, we've been trying to find out whether it's because of financial entanglements with people like Putin or Erdogan or Saudi Arabia. We will ultimately get those records as a result of the Supreme Court decision, but they will be delayed. And, every day they're delayed, sadly, is another day that the country is at risk. But for whatever reason, he refuses to accept or believe anything ill said about the Russians or Putin. And that endangers our country. It endangers us, I think, in Afghanistan. It endangers us in Syria. It endangers our allies in Ukraine. And it's just dangerous, I think, for America.
What is this maniac even talking about? Oh, he's going to the Afghan Taliban bounty thing with Russia. How much crap can he fit into one soundbite? That's what you have to wonder. That's what you have to ask. They're back to Russia. I told you, if you go back and you look at the transcripts or you download old podcasts, I've been saying, get ready. They're going to bring back Russia. I was saying it last fall. They're going to bring back Russia. And trust me, it doesn't matter that it was all a lie. It doesn't matter that it was all crazy. And here we are. Look, we're in a fight, friends. And the other side, to say they're not fighting fair is a dramatic understatement. So we might as well get ready for this, the bare knuckle brawl. But we did have one big victory on Friday. What is it? Oh, I'll tell you.